Bohemian Rhapsody won over audiences, but as is the case with most true story biopics that are highly successful, there's usually plenty of fiction thrown in. The Freddie Mercury biopic doesn't disappoint in that regard, and today we'll look at the top 10 lies in Bohemian Rhapsody. Let's get started. Number 10. How Freddie Mercury joins the band. In the movie, Freddie Mercury attends a 1970 performance of Brian May and Roger Taylor's band Smile. Coincidentally, this is the same night that their lead singer Tim Staffel quits. Freddie Mercury goes out back and introduces himself to May and Taylor, and at which time he delivers an impromptu rendition of their song Doin' All Right. May and Taylor are blown away by Freddie's singing, and he's instantly in the band. In real life, Freddie Mercury's journey to become a member of May and Taylor's band Smile was actually much more drawn out. While attending Ealing Art College in London, Mercury befriended Tim Staffel, the lead singer of Smile, who would eventually quit. Through Tim Staffel, Mercury met Brian May and Roger Taylor. Mercury had indeed become a fan of Smile, and Brian May recalls that Mercury hassled them to let him become a member, but they resisted until Tim Staffel quit. Tim Staffel did leave to join a band called Humpy Bong, and to no one's surprise, that band wasn't very successful. Like in the movie, with Freddie Mercury on board, Smile eventually evolved into the band Queen. Number 9. How Freddie meets girlfriend Mary Austin. In the movie, Freddie Mercury meets Mary Austin the same night he joins the band. In real life, guitarist Brian May had actually dated Mary Austin prior to Freddie, and it wasn't until after Freddie became lead singer that he even became interested in Mary Austin. It's true that Freddie and Mary had at one point been engaged to be married. It's also true that they remained lifelong friends. Freddie actually left his house to Mary in his will. Number 8. Queen's first album. In the movie, the band saves up to record their first album, and it's largely seen as a success. In real life, their first album didn't receive critical acclaim, and its reception was largely subdued. They turned to onstage theatrics to raise their public profile. This included Freddie's outlandish costumes and over-the-top performances. It soon became clear that Queen was no longer just a supporting act. They recorded their second album, Queen II, released in 1974. It was a hit on both sides of the Atlantic. Their third album, Sheer Heart Attack, was released that same year, and it contained their hit single, Killer Queen. For the sake of time, it makes sense that the movie condensed their initial success into their first album. Number 7. John Deacon as the original bass player. Deacon wasn't the original bass player. He was actually the fourth bassist that they tried. He didn't join the band until 1971, and he wasn't there for their first concert. Number 6. Freddie Mercury's sexuality. In the movie, Freddie Mercury comes out to Mary and tells her that he's bisexual. Mary then responds by saying, "Freddie, you're gay," and this is what the movie would have us believe. However, Freddie's original statement was indeed the truth. In real life, he would continue to have both male and female lovers. One such female lover after Mary was German actress Barbara Valentine. Number 5. Mike Myers' character, record executive Ray Foster. There was no real-life Ray Foster. At best, he is very loosely based on EMI chief Roy Featherstone, but unlike Foster in the movie, Featherstone was actually a big fan of Queen. However, he did complain that their song Bohemian Rhapsody was too long to be released as a single. Number 4. Freddie Mercury meeting Jim Hutton. In the movie, Freddie Mercury meets Jim Hutton while Hutton is working as a server at one of Mercury's outrageous parties. Hutton initially rejects Mercury, but they talk late into the night before parting ways. In real life, Hutton worked as a hairdresser at London's Savoy Hotel. He didn't meet Mercury at one of Mercury's parties. He actually met Mercury at a nightclub when Freddie Mercury offered to buy Hutton a drink. Hutton did reject Mercury, and he wouldn't see him for another year and a half. And unlike in the movie, Hutton said that he hadn't recognized the superstar at the nightclub. He didn't know who he was. Coincidentally, when they met again, it was at the same nightclub, and Mercury once again offered to buy him a drink. That time, Hutton accepted. They remained together until Mercury's death in November 1991. Number 3. Paul Prenter exposing Freddie's private life. This is another instance of the movie switching around the real-life timeline to fit into the movie's narrative. First, Freddie didn't fire Paul Prenter for not telling him about the Live Aid concert. In real life, he didn't fire Paul Prenter until a year later after the concert in 1986. After the firing in the movie, we see Prenter go to a TV station and give an interview that exposes Freddie Mercury's private life. In reality, he never did a TV interview. He went to the press, a tabloid, and exposed Freddie's private life. This included his own on and off again affair with Mercury and how Freddie Mercury's former lovers were now dying of AIDS. It's true that the other members of Queen didn't like Paul Prenter, and they're quoted as calling him a bad influence. Number 2, the AIDS diagnosis. In the movie, Freddie Mercury is diagnosed with AIDS prior to Live Aid, and he breaks the news to the band during rehearsals for the show. Again, the movie has changed the real-life timeline. In reality, it is believed that Freddie was diagnosed with AIDS in 1987, 2 years after Live Aid. He is said to have revealed the truth to his family and close friends in 1989. He didn't publicly acknowledge he had the disease until he released an official statement on November 23, 1991, the day before he passed away. Number 1, the band splitting up. The band having a bad breakup in the movie and then reuniting years later for Live Aid might make for good drama, but it didn't happen in real life. By 1983, the band had been on tour for more than a decade and they were burnt out. They all agreed on taking a break to focus on their solo careers. And no, Freddie Mercury never signed a $4 million solo deal behind their backs. They stayed in touch and they started making their album The Works later that year. They released The Works in early 1984 and had been on tour all over the world. They were well rehearsed by the time Live Aid came around the following year. Their performance at Live Aid was just as impressive in real life as it is in the movie, if not more so. They indeed stole the show and delivered what many consider to be one of the greatest rock and roll performances of all time. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on Facebook.